Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the show. Welcome to another Sunday night and the final episode of Season 1 of American Gods. We're here at AfterBuzz TV to break the whole thing down. We have a very special guest in house. Hang out with us, guys. We'll see you in just 1 second.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Oh my God! What episode? We're here.
Oh my goodness.
I'm so excited, guys. That episode was nuts. I got all the payoff that I wanted to see. It was so great. So great. We're here at AfterBuzz TV, guys. It's Sunday night. We're breaking down the final episode of Season 1, AfterBuzz TV. Come to Jesus. And we have in the house a very special guest. Let's give it up for Yetide Banaki.
Bell Quest, Bell Quest, Bell Quest, Bell Quest, Bell Quest.
Y'all are making me blush.
This was a great episode, and your character is she's so devious. Your eyes are like unbelievable on the show. You're like such a, like not quite a villain, but I feel like when you're like, I'll see you in the bathroom, I'm like, oh my God.
I actually just had a friend tell me that they will never ask me where the bathroom is again. So.
You're gonna have a lot of trouble on airplanes now and buses.
Say, excuse me, ma'am, you're not allowed.
Yeah, you're gonna probably need to find the bathroom at some point, and you're gonna ask for the bathroom, and someone will be like, I am not telling you. I'm not getting into your vagina nebula. You're trying to trick me.
Why is it so bad, though?
Everyone seems to be happy.
Right?
You know?
We had tried to come up with names. I'm glad they named the Vagina Nebula tonight. That was something we had been vague about many times. So
I think we called it the Vagina Nebula.
Right.
I think we called it the Cosmic Vagina. That's what I thought we had been.
I definitely said the words Vagina Nebula.
Well, I know Bryan had been on that from the beginning.
Yes.
He actually wanted to buy that domain name. He was he was on it. He said, I want Vagina Nebula. Somebody make it happen. And
It has to be a Twitter handle, right?
I think
Somebody
that's
must
why.
have said it.
I think that's why I did name it, because I saw on his Twitter feed is like really great, and I saw on his Twitter feed that his mom was like, I don't like the looks on the men's faces in the vagina, like in that special place, and then he said, my mom on the Vagina Nebula. So he was like branding that from the very
from the
beginning.
get-go, he was on that. Yeah.
All right, guys, so let's go around and introduce ourselves, where we can find on Twitter. And while we do that, Dave Child, will you look up the Twitter handle at Vagina Nebula?
Yes,
See what's going on with the Twitter handle. I need to know. Let's start with our very special guest, Yetide Badaki. Where can the folks find you if they want to follow along?
Hi, it's super simple, at Yetide Badaki.
That's so simple.
So simple.
People know how to spell that, right? Easy.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Maybe I should do a quick one. Okay. Yetidebadaki. Thank goodness I can spell my name. I was nervous for a minute.
I wouldn't be able to. Yeah, on the first try, I don't think. I was maybe in my head close. I feel like I was one letter off. But
You don't even have the whole name.
No.
Oh, do you want to hear the whole name?
What's the whole name?
Yes, please.
Yetide Bolatito Alon Tamala Badaki.
Holy moly!
So beautiful.
I felt like you just sang us a song.
Yeah, right?
That is lovely.
Yeah.
It's a lot of Nigerian names are pretty much a whole sentence, basically.
Yeah.
That's like in The Mummy when they're like, you must not read from the book! I feel like you just did that. You just read from the
I read
scripture.
from the book.
I did see on IMDb in your biography section, it does say that Yetide means a mother is back.
That's correct. I was born a year after my grandmother died, so.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That feels very like it feels like you're kind of perfect for American Gods,
Right.
in a lot of ways, because that already has like, it feels like a tie-in with ancestors and like kind of this kind of spiritual feeling to it.
Right.
And then you're also immigrant yourself.
Right.
So how do you connect with that with the whole show?
Well, I think you all knew that from the get-go. I've told everybody what a geek I am, and I don't know that people quite get it.
First thought I thought when you walked in here, I was like, what a nerd.
Yes,
such a nerd.
I see, and that's the thing. That's part of the reason I came in like my Yetide clothes, because I'm like, it takes a village to make Bilquis happen, and you have people like Carola Stiles and Roselle Sandra and Colin Penman, all makeup and hair, and of course an amazing Suturat Larlab that create these beautiful costumes. So, there's a bit of a journey into Bilquis. But yeah, being a big geek, I was a Neil Gaiman fan from the very beginning.
Nice.
Yeah. So I had read American Gods back in 2001.
Nice.
Cool.
And that is one of the things that resonated with me, was all these coming to America stories. Because I literally had come to America. And it felt like he really understood that experience.
Right.
And so cut forward to Bryan Fuller and Michael Green putting their fingers in there. And I definitely could understand that Bilquis journey of not quite trying to find my place in a new world. And they all just were pitch perfect in playing with that experience. And I don't know if you all know, but it is Immigrant Heritage Month.
Oh.
Yes. So Pablo, Bruce, and I got to do a little shoot in our I Am Immigrant shirts, because we all are. And this show with these coming up to America stories really that talks about that experience.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
That's
and
awesome.
You were also in the first episode. I think you definitely stole the show.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, that scene.
No. In this group, it's hard to steal anything.
Yeah, but still, like, that scene is probably the most iconic. I know whenever this was talked about being adapted, that was the first people were like,
Right.
but how will you do the Bilquis scene? Like, don't even try to adapt it until you figure that out. Were you a part of the planning for that at all?
Well, people don't realize how long the writers have been working on this before we even got to play with it.
Right.
So, there are a lot of people that work in the writing room that talk about the show and they go, yes, I've been on it for 3-4 years now, So there was a lot of planning that was done ahead of time. A lot of careful planning, and Bryan and Michael were talking about that in interviews way back, and I think that was one of the first things they talked to Starz about. Even Starz said, how are you going to do this scene?
Right.
And then Bryan says, as written. As far as planning, David Slade, who directed the first 3 episodes, he very carefully, meticulously storyboarded all of that stuff very, very early on. It was choreographed to the T. And so as far as planning,
You didn't
I
just
only
ad-lib that whole... You didn't just go
worship me.
let's just
That's
see
what
what happens.
we'll see where this goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's I came in with the joy of having had a whole village already planning and creating. So when people ask me, how will you do that scene, or how did you do that scene, I say it takes a village.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't downplay the impact of that scene, because I was in the theater with you guys at the premiere, and that literally got like a standing ovation. That was like the moment during
Nice.
that was like a crazy.
Can
yeah.
I get real with y'all? for a
Yes.
minute?
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
get real.
Please.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little nervous.
Sure.
Not a lot of people know me as an actor. People from school know that what I love are things like Shakespeare and the Greek classics, and here I was about to jump into this very vulnerable position. And
Right.
Bryan and Michael and Neil and Starz and everyone, obviously they all got it, and they knew that there was something deeper we wanted to share. But I was very nervous about whether or not the general reaction would be a positive one. And and again, being a geek, I'm going, well, I don't even know if I could, she's sexy. I don't know about that. And it was actually, not to get all emotional, but I'm gonna get emotional. No, but it was actually a really beautiful moment, being in that theater and having
Yeah.
people applaud.
Yeah.
It's more than anything I could have hoped for or dreamed for. So, that reaction, and I'd say that's all thanks to you guys, and that's all thanks to God Squad. And
You're
all
welcome.
Of that.
You're welcome.
So thank you.
As a nerd and a fan of Neil Gaiman, I'm like obsessed with him. Did you get a chance to meet with him? Did you talk about your character with him at all?
Did not talk about my character with him because I'm no, I'm not gonna say obsessed, but sorry, Neil, but a very big fan. And so the first time I met him, all I could do was shake his hand and then scurry away because I could not speak. It's Neil Gaiman. And you've seen him in person too. He's also so debonair and charming, and one of the most intelligent people in the room, pretty much all the time. So yes, even though I would have loved to chatted Bilquis a little bit more, none of those questions occurred till after I scurried away. So,
Right.
Yeah.
You could probably still reach out to him at this point, you know, and be like, "Hey, so about that case."
Well, no, he's since I think actually it was Comic-Con that we finally got to really chat,
Oh, nice.
and that was because we were all in the same car together, going places, so I couldn't scurry away. Neil is pretty much an expert on a lot of things.
Right.
So you see us all just sitting in the car going, because he always knows that interesting tidbit about, you know, everything that's around. So, but yes, so did get to talk to him a little bit more at Comic-Con.
Amazing.
That's great.
So I do want to jump into the recap of the episode a little bit, and we will weave through the Bilquis scenes, so then we can chat a little bit more about the story.
Sure.
So I think let's start out with just the opener. We always kind of open on the opener, and before we do that, guys, we didn't finish our handles. Joelle, where can the folks find you if they do want to
You
follow
just find
us?
me at Joelle Monique. That's it.
You can find me online at Kari Lane.
Yeah, and I'm at Mr. Dave Child. I'm Dave Child.
And you guys can find me at Ben Bateman Media. Be sure to give us a rating review on iTunes because it does help us provide free content every single week. We always will.
We were just super excited to talk to you.
Yes.
So that's why we're like, forget who we are.
Doesn't even matter.
No, I need to, I apologize. I totally interrupted that.
No,
No,
absolutely
You're
not.
fine.
It's like, you know, we get this.
it's a good thing to be distracted by.
So we open up on Mr. Nancy on Anansi.
Finally.
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
waiting.
Another one
I
of these
love
big monologues.
I love the reveal of him though, like spiders
Yeah.
on these suits, and then seeing him like I feel like we don't usually see dressmaking or sewing as like this powerful thing, but he looks like a god as he's sewing.
Right.
I was like,
Right.
this is gonna be like the most amazing suits, and then they were.
Yes.
Right. Like he is providing the power of the way you'll be perceived
Yes.
as you walk in. I thought that was
Yeah.
cool. And I think they had alluded to a little bit of the Bilquis background in the story. Like you could sort of be, because the earlier scene where she's in the museum and she's looking, and there's sort of moments where you're like, okay, I get the background a little bit, but the real story with the different eras and the king, and then you're on the street and all that, it was really, really nice to see the actual character and where all the history came from. And beautifully shot, really cool. The 70s part was definitely my favorite.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
fun.
Well, and we rarely see Tron like that, which is really cool.
Yes, it was very interesting. And I was gonna say I loved even just like we got all our sexy scenes, so we got our giant mass orgy thing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that was fun.
Finally.
Required.
I-
we got
I-
like 2 orgies, kind of. We got like an orgy and a half.
Yeah.
Right.
We had a dance party.
Yeah.
It was going that way. You've had so many gorgeous costumes, and you yourself are stunning. What was it like to be on that show and really get to show off what you really look like?
Oh, wow. Okay, what I really look like.
I mean, come on, this show is. Yeah.
You know, as I said, geek. So I'm usually in the yoga pants and the baseball hat. But luckily, we have people like I got to mention them for a minute. But Suturat Lala did costumes, and she came to us. She was actually at the very beginning still working on Waitress and doing this
cool.
at the same time. And she's just brilliant, and everything is researched to the T. And then Colin's gonna hate me for saying this, but Emmy-nominated Colin Penman on makeup. On his birthday, we made up shirts that said Emmy-nominated Colin Penman because that's how we
Nice.
like to refer to him. And well, it's
Yeah.
just truth. And his makeup is incredible. And then you have Carola and Roselle, like I was saying. So they all are huge researchers. Actually, that's one of the great things about this show. There's nobody that doesn't give 110%. And once you say, okay, so we're gonna do a scene where, you know, someone turns left, then everyone's going into like, okay, well, there's left, and then there's the historical idea of left, and you know, we're all geeks and we're all fans, and we all, you know, want to do this thing justice. So every costume is researched, looking at historical relevance. You had the Grace Jones inspired 70s feel, and I remember Sucharat just saying, I just want her to be free. This is all about freedom, freedom of expression, freedom of being at that point. And so then Colin's coming in with makeup, doing that with the stars around the eyes and all of that. And then the hair, of course, we had to find the right fro. I mean, come on, you can't do 70s without the right fro. But that date is very significant because that was the time of the revolution. And going back to what Orlando was talking about as Mr. Nancy, and women and agency through time, that was a time when women lost a lot of agency in that area. And even looking at the costumes that were created, Sucharat was showing me all these pictures of the way women dressed before that time, the way women dressed in Tehran. And it was free. None of what we have begun to conceive of the area. So getting to put all this on and getting to dive into the research and to dive into the history, I mean, how often do you get to do that? Yeah, I geeked out. That's the simple short answer. I geeked out.
That's a good answer.
Coming into the show, were there like certain passages from the book that you remember as a giant nerd that you were just like, oh my god, I'm gonna get to actually, that's the real thing, I'm gonna be in that scene?
Yeah. that one immediately jumped out at me. And I how much can we say about the episode as far as spoilers?
Everything.
Talk about the episode.
Okay, I like the fact that there's a bit of they do a little bit of a twist there with the technical boy and the Bilquis thing. Because if you remember in the book, as soon as you see technical boy show up in a limo, I'm thinking many fans who've read it go, this is the part where, she's gone, you know, where she becomes roadkill.
Right.
And then major twist. Wait a minute, there's an alliance or something of the sort being discussed.
Yeah, one of the questions we're getting on the live chat, which is from Renji90998, is which... Oh, sorry, actually, that's another one.
There's two questions.
Two questions I want to give. Sure. But the first one I want to ask is from GBNF. Whose side do you think your character is on, the old gods or the new? Now, if you can't say, if you know too much, then you don't have to say anything. But if you don't, because how much of the next season have you seen or read?
Well, I have not read any. That I can say honestly.
Okay.
How much do I know? That's just a question in life, right? However, I think the best answer is Ian McShane says this a lot about the show. Nothing is ever as it seems.
Great.
Okay.
I do love how, like, when Technical Boy introduces Tinder to you, and how it's, and how you become almost the god of Tinder.
I don't believe we can use the actual name. Or no, I don't know.
It's a
trademark app that
Tinder, Hinge,
like
Bumble,
Tinder.
Whatever the...
It had a purple flame instead of a red. Like,
whatever the swipey lovemaking machine was.
There we go. I like that one.
I do like... I just like how... It almost is one of the new gods finding a place for this old god in new technology. And do you feel like you actually became, or that god became, Bilquis became the god of swipey lovemaking, or was that just a tool to kind of let you survive a little bit longer?
I think one of the fascinating things about these characters is, and I keep on saying it, the old gods are old for a reason. There's some scrappy peeps.
Acting saw today with Easter. Oh my God!
How great was she?
She's so good. Like, first of all,
so good.
It's Kristen Chenoweth, and we talked a little bit last week about how Easter in the book is like this giant kind of voluptuous woman, but then I was excited that they were going to flip that because she is a giant woman in a tiny woman's body. Like, she has so much personality.
Exactly it. In person, this woman walks into a room and she fills it. I mean, not just the room, the whole building. And that's just her inner light. And then you start to see that talent. I mean, she's a giant.
Yeah.
Kristen is a giant.
I was so excited to see her, and she didn't disappoint at all. I love watching her kind of flit in and out of the rooms with her little rabbit-like whispers. Kind of commanding each situation with like a Southern lady's charm.
Yes.
It is wonderful.
I also saw him on the Twitter feed that there was a deleted scene where Easter sent a rabbit to poop out some candy and money
yes.
next to a homeless Bilquist.
Yes, that was a thing.
I kind of wish that was still there. That's nice.
I mean, I think you can tell that these are goddesses whose paths have crossed over time.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially with the Easter might have a lot of connection with you since it's about rebirth. And spring is all about kind of birth and things coming out.
New life and all of those things. We have quite a bit in common.
This show has like this wonderful, like some of the best moments in shows like Twin Peaks or Fargo or Preacher, where it's like that black comedy Coen Brothers-y sort of like just the quirkiness, running over the rabbits, for instance.
Love that. Actually, I know that sounds horrible, but such because like they had the accident in the last episode, he's like, no, we're just gonna drive through. I'm like, good, because they're like, oh no, little rabbit, and like crash their vehicle.
That's what I mean. It's just that weird quirkiness.
Did anyone else?
I was like, poor rabbits. And you're like, good. Just go through the rabbits.
Go through the rabbit.
We had a couple of questions. Renji earlier asked. That one is, what was the favorite?
Yeah, besides.
Who's your favorite character besides yourself?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't even have to add the besides myself. Here's the thing. Everybody in this show, they come in and they do such amazing work, and they're so fascinating, and I want to know what's going on with the characters. Now, everyone knows, though, growing up in Nigeria and hearing those stories of Anansi, there's a special place in my heart. And I think someone also asked who I would switch with. And I said, only so that I would see Orlando play Bilquist.
Yes!
Yeah.
I would definitely switch with Nancy there, just to see him do it.
Nice.
It's a whole different type of nebula.
That's a guy that's got a lot of personality.
Oh my goodness.
There's only a few experiences I can think of ever on a red carpet where the guy takes the mic from you, and that's one of the guys who took the mic from me and did his thing with the mic. It's like that's like a thing. You're like, you've got it, man.
Oh, and he's brilliant. He's like Mensa smart. It's incredible.
Another good question. Lucas Augusto asks, "What's your favorite scene in the show?" So either what I'll make that two-part. One, what was your favorite scene to do yourself that you were in, and what was your favorite to watch?
To watch, I still get goosebumps. Again, there's so many favorites, but I still get goosebumps of that Mr. Nancy intro on the ship.
Right. Yeah,
it's great. It's just so powerful. It says so much. It was just so well done, so well written, so well conceived. It's just.
It was also great just to see how he brought the anger gets shit done. The way he brings it back, where he's talking about Tehran in the 70s, and how it's kind of a good thing that anger got shit done on the ship, because it's kind of justice was served, and now it's flipped, and now it's like it gets shit done, but it's not the shit you necessarily want to see.
Well, every episode I find has like at least one sentence that's like just a very like bite-sized. This is a powerful thing we're gonna say, and I think the line in this one that really stuck with me is that angry men know no end to their hatred when dealing with powerful women. I think it was something like that. I can't remember the exact sentence, but it was basically that. And it was like, that's 100% true. It's like a bunch of.
And I think Bryan has mentioned this before, that after that they came in to cut all of this in this episode at a very interesting time. It was the morning after, so to speak. And so that had a whole other resonance in that time. But yes, I mean, their writing is incredible. They are the gods of the pen.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
to get back into the show a little bit, I did want to ask a question, since you're an expert on the books as well. I couldn't remember if there were that many Jesuses at the Easter
No, there are
party.
no Jesuses in the book. This is my favorite fact about the show.
Okay,
is that
great.
Neil Gaiman cut Jesus out of the book because it didn't quite fit.
I think
but he
I saw
had
like
this
an extended scene at one point. Yeah.
That he did release online like years later, and then he was like, we're going to bring this moment back in. And I think when he had written it, he'd only written one Jesus. So I like this idea of expanding it to like all of these Jesuses. It was great. And we saw the board on Twitter earlier today of the 14 different types of Jesuses.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
No, it's great, and I wish I could remember the exact line, but that there's much need for Jesus.
Yes.
So there are many Jesuses.
Yes.
I just thought that was incredible, and that that speaks again to this incredible creative team.
I love the relationship between Christine Chenoweth, between the God of Easter and Jesus, and how she's just sort of, she's like kind of pissed off. She's like, you kind of took my shine, but she's also like, but it was necessary.
Right.
Yeah, I loved
She's
all
so
that interaction.
accommodating.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was her lifeline for a really long time. It was the thing that saved her. I like afterwards, after the show, they talked about how because Kristen Chenoweth is such a devout Christian that they enjoyed employing her for this role because it would be such a reversal of who she was as a person, and that irony was going to be fun to watch. And I think it did play really well the way when Jesus is so hurt and offended,
he's like,
like
I'm so sorry.
what did I do? I'm feeling really bad right now. I like how sweet and hippie Jesus
He
is.
was so wonderful.
He's like the most cuddly version of Jesus I've ever seen.
Right, just loving, and I love that scene of him in the pool with his glass and everything.
Yes.
You know,
He
it was
dropped
just. And I mean, he's just such an amazing performer. It was just
that actor, whose his name it always escapes me. But I mean, originally I first saw him in Saving Private Ryan. That's when he's got that meaty role, and then he's Daniel Faraday in Lost as well.
Yeah, and
It's
remember Justified.
Is it Matthew? Something?
Jeremy Davies.
Jeremy Davies. Yeah.
And I love how his character is Jesus Prime.
Nice.
I realized that. I kind of thought that he was maybe he was the white Jesus.
Oh,
He was kind of.
Well, Jesus Prime. And if you remember, was it episode 5 with the crossing of the Rio Grande?
Yeah.
That was played by Ernesto Reyes, who is the sweetest, most loving individual you've ever met. So
It seems to be the trait that they required in casting their Jesuses.
And the Jesuses.
Jesus eye?
Yeah. Jesus-eye.
Jesus-eye?
Yes, I think it was Jesus-eye in the Bryan's tweet.
Wow. The many G's. Yeah, that scene was just great all around, everything about it. So what we did get in this episode, though, that we hadn't gotten in a lot of the episodes prior, was we got real, legitimate, like large-scale conflict. Like, this is the story, all the setup, and some of the slower moments in the earlier episodes where they're taking so much time to establish these characters really did start to pay off here. I almost wish we had had another episode this season because I wanted to see, Peter Stormare show up, and I wanted to see the other gods and more, so we got sort of like the first major push in that direction, though.
I'm really happy
stand off a little bit.
I'm really happy with where the gauntlet was thrown. I like that we end with this idea of something I think maybe, I know I certainly miss, is like the lack of, there's not a lack of women in the show, there's a lack of women currently in power in the show. And at the end, they give you, and it's like, but why don't you have queens? And it's like, oh, obviously, this is the part that we're missing. I love the idea of Odin finally being able to say his name, and this idea that when gods speak their name that there's so much power. I love that we get the gauntlet throw at the end of it. Like, I wonder if because I'm a book reader, and I'd love to hear from fans, if you haven't read the book, were you this level of excited? Because I know what's going to happen. And so seeing this gauntlet thrown, I was like, yes, the war is coming.
And
it's
that
gonna
was
be so
earlier
great.
before. That was going to be in episode 4 or something?
Oh,
where
wow,
he revealed
really?
himself. And then Bryan and Michael looked at it and they said, no, that doesn't make sense. We need to wait.
That's
for
certainly
him
something
to
that we've talked about before, because that carousel scene, which you get a feel of here, but you know is going to happen later. I was like, oh, we're moving it. And then structurally that makes so much more sense, because the book is, it's so heady, it's so inside people's internal dialogue that there was a lot of question of how are we going to stretch this out and not feel like we're stretched to the limit. And I think the compromises they made and the way they adjusted it for the time period is so perfect.
Right. And I'd love to hear from the fans about this as well, but as a fan of the book, I love that I'm never quite sure where I go, oh wait, I know this part from the, oh wait, no, it's different, or oh, there's more, or it's at a different place. It keeps me as a fan on my toes. And so that way, when people say, well, will it ruin it if I read the book? And I go, no, it's a
Were you
perfect
thrown when you saw the
companion.
Laura episode? Were you like, oh my God, what is even happening?
Oh my goodness, I loved it. I loved it. I totally fangirled out. It was, and Emily is just amazing anyways. So,
her comeback too at the standoff at the end was so good. She's like, can I have a moment alone with my husband? And just,
I know.
She doesn't care about any of them.
Who
She's
was going to take the wind out of Odin's sails? He was like, I'm
He's
so
like,
close.
Right.
I finally got him to be like, yes, I do believe.
Dead wife.
Yep.
Yep, it's always dead wife.
And then the dead wife comes back.
So a couple things we want to talk about there before we run out of time. And so I do want to talk about the Mad Sweeney stuff with Easter and all that. But I also just want to talk about when he says to her, how do you know he's here? And it shows her vision, and as she's gotten more and more dead, her vision has gotten more and more gray. She can see less and less, and all she sees is the light. And I like that reflects this idea that when you're dying, you see a light, right? You see a light when you die. So the more dead she gets, the more clear just that light is.
Shadows light?
Yeah, just
Which
that.
I think is a fascinating thing too. Shadows light.
Yeah, right. Right.
But, yeah.
And so she finds out. First off, she finds out that Mad Sweeney killed her, but she's like not even that. I did love she has the one line, "I'll squeeze him like a pea shooter," right?
Oh, that pop out like Shark and Pea Pod.
Like
I
a
felt
pea
really
shooter.
poor. I was like, Matt Sweeney doesn't deserve this.
No.
Like, this is ridiculous. This is extra.
Yeah.
So she finds out that it's Mad Sweeney.
He's not the best guy.
I love Matt.
Oh no, I would love him. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just saying, as far as her being angry with him, she might have a reason.
Yeah.
She has a good point though. If she's like, well, it wasn't you. Who hired you?
Right.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Then how she's like, no, you're not a god.
Yeah.
You did it. And yeah, her moment with Easter, like, let me take care of you. And then like that moment when she realizes, I loved her look over to him. She's like, oh, this is more than I thought it was.
I really appreciated the visual representation of like the photo within the eye because it
Yes.
looked like a film negative,
Yeah.
but also in reverse, so like you were looking inside
Yep.
of the camera. I was like,
Yeah.
that is so cool.
So nice.
Yeah, she puts a butterfly on the.
Sure does.
She
Yeah,
set
on
the
the
butterfly inside
suture.
the jacket.
Well, she's pinning.
I
her.
thought
Yeah,
it was
she's
also
putting her
like
flesh
a
back together.
anti-smell something for the
Maybe,
flies
yeah,
as well,
right,
like
right,
a
right.
freshener.
I love how horrible she's starting to look.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
She
it's
looks
really-
bad.
especially after last week's episode where we see her as Essie, is it Essie?
Essie. Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
she's beautiful throughout the whole episode.
right.
Yeah.
And then just cutting back to Laura now, and you're just like, oh.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
Not a good look at Laura.
And she's such a beautiful woman to begin with.
Yeah.
They're making her look quite dead.
Well, that's one of the things Emily said was fun about playing with her was that she's like, yeah, didn't have to worry about it. It's like, yeah, can we go grocer? That sounds great. Let's do it.
I don't have to shower for months. This is great.
We got a question that kind of we've brought up before. Do you think Sweeney loves Laura or is interested in Laura in any way?
I'm just saying, I like the ship of Swoon.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good
That's
choice.
enough for me. I love that.
I do have to say, after last week's episode,
Yeah.
it's making more sense to me now.
Definitely.
Because right at that, previous to that, I think I yelled. We got into an argument about that ship because I was just
I was like, come
oh. I mean, but because the thing that I didn't like about it was it felt like she would be going from another guy to another guy, and I feel like she needed to find her independence.
Right.
And I didn't need to
okay.
have her just like jump to
Well,
another guy.
I didn't even necessarily think it. It just felt like two people finding common
Right.
ground, and that there was something, at least to me, that I find very fascinating.
Well, he does say when she says to him, "Why do you want her resurrected?" and he says, "Selfish reasons." And I read into that a little bit. I thought about that. I mean, I know what he's referring to, but I also think that a little bit that's
There was
like,
some second
yeah,
underlying
right.
coding
You
there.
caught it too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And Easter's looking at him like, really?
Yeah, right.
So, yeah. Dude,
Yeah.
And you owe me. What the hell is that about?
Or Give Me Shelter goes, Sweeney doesn't love Laura, he feels sorry for her.
Yeah, I do get a sense that it could also be. I mean, it does feel like it could be a ship, but it could also feel kind of almost paternal because he's almost looking out for her the way that he looked out for Essie.
Yeah.
So it's. I don't know.
Well, I'm not pretending I have the answer to it at all. I'm just,
This is you.
enjoying it, watching it
Right.
unfold. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we comment about the fact that early in the episode, Wednesday says, "Don't don't read into her too much or something. She may take a liking to you." Talking
Yes.
about Easter.
No, Easter, yeah.
Which he was like star-eyed right
Starstruck
away.
right away. I was wondering what that meant. Like, what happens if she gets a hold of you? Like, what is that?
I think he just doesn't want him in the thrall of another god. I
Yeah.
think he still wants
Yeah.
control.
Right.
And it's, they're all part of this pantheon of fertility gods.
Right.
There's a whole lot that goes on there as well. But
Yeah, you could be in the Easter Nebula.
the Easter Nebula. Let's start that one. That's
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So before we run out of time, let's talk a little bit about this climax scene with the dancing dudes in the
Yes.
hats, and Gillian
That was
Anderson,
so cool. The
and
Fred Astaire-esque
Yes.
Faceless
aspects
Fred
of
Astaire.
them.
Mr.
So great.
World,
And
all
the
of it.
fleshiness of their faces.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
The no features thing.
I love that whole moment because it doesn't betray what Easter is about. You know what I mean? It's very classic Americana. It's
Right.
clean. but it's still intimidating, and it still encircles her. And I feel like that's what the New Gods are all about, is about encircling people with what they love in order to trap them into worshiping and choosing them. And I thought it was a great representation of what they're about as they go out, also using people, because we see both our youth tech and Mr. World come in through these other guys and kind of use their bodies until literally there's nothing left. Mr. World is just kind of projecting on his face. I thought it was such a great way to go out and show what they're willing to do. Like, how many more faceless beings can be killed? They're living beings. So I'm
Well, I'm glad you explained it that way, because a couple of people are like, wait, does that mean technology's dead? It's like, no, they were just using those as vessels that were there. But I think Media's the only one who was actually physically there.
Yeah. Well, was Mr. World not there? He just
no, he was using the projection
he's
through
just
it.
flickering on the face.
But Tech Boy was
Mr. World ever anywhere or not somewhere?
I think. Wait, hold on, because I think you bring up a good point. I think Tech Boy was there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got a sense that Tech Boy was there, and he just was able to transport there using the technology of these devices. Also, we should note that Media was dressed up as Judy Garland from Easter Parade, which was a nice little, like, not as like well known as David Bowie or Marilyn Monroe.
Right.
So
Or
it was a
Lucy.
nice little, like, nod, and then that's why it was faceless Fred Astaire, who's also in Easter Parade.
I didn't catch that. I didn't catch that.
So someone in the chat said that Taylor Iverson said, part of me suspected a musical dance number with all the faceless cane twirls started marching. I think also with Easter right there too, and watching Pushing Daisies before, I was like, ooh, I think we're gonna get into a song. Doesn't quite get there.
Well, it was a lot of the same people, actually. The same dancers that were there were in the Tehran scene, and then also in the temple scene.
That's
interesting.
Yeah, so it makes sense to me.
We have a question for you. Do you prefer the intro Easter scene in the book versus the show?
Oh, that's tough. That's tough. Again, this is why I think it's a perfect companion piece. There's things to love with both of them, and we just get to take different hallways in that same house of the book.
I miss a little bit of, I think one of the elements from the book that got lost in the show, or had to be removed for time and distance and things, is like where you are spatially in the book is so vital to how the characters are feeling and what the gods are doing and why they've settled in certain places. So I believe Easter's in like San Francisco or in the Bay Area.
Yeah, she's in the Bay.
And she's like this full voluptuous woman, but it's like all love around her. And so this idea of like free love and everything, it just kind of makes sense. But with the Jesus is added, I think the celebration of trying to appease them does really work well for the show.
Right. And I think they still there was such a charm in the meeting of Shadow and Easter that was in the book that I think we definitely felt in the show as well. And I thought from the very beginning, you see that little twinkle of the eye.
One thing I was curious about was, does Bilquis have this like enchanting spell where people get weak in the knees, or is it that they're unaware so they fall victim to her like sex spell? Because Tech Boy is able to just say, I want nothing to do with it.
Right.
And I was curious why he has that ability.
Well, the Tech Boy, I mean, that's the major, I think the largest distance between the old and the new gods. Technology, more of colder screens and devices, and even the way he thinks is very different, while Bilquis is all about organic and connection and humanity. So yeah, I could see Bilquis reaching out to Tech Boy, and it just comes up against a hard screen.
Right.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
It's not the right kind.
Right.
There is a line, I think, that who is it? As Media says it, you'll be lucky to, something about you'll be lucky to have anybody worship you where you're not a screen or something like that a year from now. Some line like that, which is just like that imposing threat of just like the old gods are dying. If you don't get with us, you're just done.
We also get a sense at this end though of the power of the old gods,
Yes, finally got to see some of that.
Yeah, the old gods do have nature behind them because they've been. That's what they're connected to. Yep. So you have Odin, who finally says he's Odin, but I think we all knew it. But he finally says he's Odin, and strikes down with lightning and clouds, and then you have Easter creating a drought just around it. So it really shows that they can be used. And we did hear the plan earlier with Odin and Easter said if you create a drought, if we create famine, then they'll worship you again to get it back.
Also, Wednesday does lie and say that the others killed Vulcan.
Oh,
And
yes.
he uses it as a
And Shadow
ploy.
kind of looks over and I'm like,
That's dangerous.
Which might be a big, you don't want her vengeance.
But I think to your earlier point, the old gods are around for a reason.
Yes.
And we already know he kind of killed with impunity. He was like, you're in my way, so you have to go now.
Yep.
So I think he knows what cards he's playing. Not to say that it couldn't come back and bite him in the butt, but I feel like he'll have a secondary plan.
And I think there's something very different about old gods, about the way that they experience time and they play the game. They've been around a long time. That's one of the reasons I love that museum scene with Bilquis and with Tech Boy, where there's a lot of words and it's quick, and the new god is doing all that, and then Bilquis takes her time. I mean, it's like a slow river under a mountain. She's been around for eons. I'm pretty sure if you checked out what Lucy was doing, there's probably some paintings of Bilquis in there.
Right.
So yeah, they have a different way of experiencing.
There is a comment in here that Bilquis's power should not be underestimated, and that's from Recovering Christian.
Oh,
Which I kind of like.
That's great. That's great.
oh, that's perfect.
Perfect. It's
Can't top
kinda-
that. Can't
yeah.
top that.
So, guys, let's get into predictions here before we finish up. What we think we're going to see next season.
We'll just look at you now.
Wow, it's coming.
TV.
It's going to be so delicious.
Well, first thing I realized was Bilquis being sent to the House on the Rock, which a lot of that's where we're heading. Right. So you're coming in as, you could be either an atomic bomb that's kind of sent there, or a spy. You could be spying on them and trying to get on their side. So,
That. No, I have no. The great thing is, as I said, I haven't read any scripts of season 2, so your guess is as good as.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That's great. Was it like a thrill when you got this script and then you saw that they're like
We're
keeping you in?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, you're a very unique character.
Of course.
yeah, the fans were totally like, wait, we need more Bilquis because it's the first episode, and then it's like,
Right.
So then this was so sad.
We also had several fans in the chat sort of thanking you for being dark-skinned and beautiful and radiant on the show and being an inspiration a little bit. So
Okay, y'all are gonna make me emotional. Why was I gonna cry?
Oh, sorry, this is just too funny. Amy P. Bilquis is the vagina assassin.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So that might even it out. It's like, you're an inspiration. You're beautiful. You're also
You're a
vagina
assassin. I love it.
Yeah, because in watching it, just like how they light you is stunning and gorgeous.
all of that gold makeup, what?
Yeah. Which it took a minute to get off, which was pretty funny. Yeah, I was still walking around the next day with like gold all over my face, which was Colin and I had a good laugh about that. But yeah, the way they light it, the way the cinematography is incredible, and you don't often get to see a dark-skinned person just lit so gorgeusly. So I mean, but that I think reflects the whole team, from Fremantle to Starz to everyone on the show. They're really doing some groundbreaking stuff.
Yeah, huge stuff. Every episode.
Can't
Joelle,
wait to see these weapons next season.
Yeah.
God weapons, and then what do our battles look like? Because now we know that they can be both physical and in a more spiritual / earth-based way. And how does Tech fight back? If you're only caring about the earth and the people you interact with, how does Tech fight that?
Yeah.
I think it's going to get dirty, and
I'm excited just to see the sort of like good Justice League versus dark Justice League nature of all the gods and what the powers are really going to look like. I think that's going to be really a lot of fun. And when Odin uses the sword in an actual battle, Kari, anything
I want to know what sways the gods that are already in play and what new ones come in and what would make them want to switch sides.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah,
Kari,
because
yes.
it's like seeing what's going on, going, you know what? Maybe I don't like that side anymore. So I want to see that, and I want to know, now that Shadow believes in all of it, what next steps he'll take.
Yeah, now that he believes. All right, folks, let's do our quick sign-offs here. Joelle, where can the folks find you?
Hey guys, I'm Joelle Monique. You can find me all over the internet at Joelle Monique, every week at blackgirlnerds.com, every Wednesday at Shows No. If you head over to the Spotify page for blackgirlnerds.com, you can see my coming out story and what is like a neo soul playlist. It's a lot of fun. Definitely check that out. Also, I wrote a review for the Mary Sue talking about this whole the color purple and where do black women stand in it. And if that's something that you're interested in, go to themarysue.com and check that out.
And my name is Kari Lane. You can find me online at Kari D Lane. That's Karidlane. And then after the show, I box office breakdown where we talk about what movies came out over the weekend. Monday, Sense 8 with this awesome lady. Hey. And Handmaid's Tale is over, but Winona Earp has started, and that's Sundays at 3.
And I'm Dave Child. You can find me at mrdavechild or davechild.com. And if you go to the Doctor Who screening, I'm going to jump in there for the end of it. Because I missed the beginning because I'm doing this show. But I'm going to be right at the end of it. So I'll see you over there soon.
And you guys can find me at Ben Bateman Media here on AfterBuzz doing Preacher. I believe it'll be on Monday nights. Check on Twitter. You can find me there, Ben Bateman Media, if you want to find out when we're doing that. And Yetide, where can they find you?
Joelle at Yetide on Instagram.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine. That's fine. Also, go buy any. No, I don't. At Yetide Badaki on Twitter, Yetide Badaki on Facebook, and Yetide Badaki on YouTube.
And you're going to be doing a live tweet right now at, 9 o'clock?
Yes, I
for the show
am.
with the whole cast.
And so, just send in questions to #AmericanGods, and we will do our best to get to those and answer.
Awesome.
Yay,
Excellent.
thank
Thanks
you
for
so
watching.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.